Friendship isn't the big things, it's a million little things. Hello there, friends, and welcome to this, another episode of A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is where we break down and discuss episodes of TV shows that you may not have even heard of. I believe these TV shows need a little more love, and that is what this platform is here to do. Each week we will be covering different shows from all over the globe. We'll be breaking down each episode, giving you the main highlights, and going through it bit by bit. But for now, I think it's best that we find out what's on the menu today. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 9 of season 8, and today we're getting into something totally new. This is something I never watched. I enjoy the actor, or the lead actor, and one of the supporting actors that's in it. I love him as well. I think he's great and underrated. But I've never watched this show, and I think I remember an advert for it when it first came out, and I never actually ended up watching it. It was probably on my list at some point, but I totally forgot about it. And I wish I'd watched it at the time now, because I've just finished the first episode, and honestly, very much Santa Clarita vibes. I'm laughing most of the way through. I think the delivery of some of the lines are epic, and just this guy's attitude is brilliant. And so we're going to be getting into the TV show Loudermilk today. This was a show that ran in around 2017 to around about 2020. And I'm not going to say too much about it because obviously I'm going to be going through the episode, so I can't really be saying too much. But from this first episode, yeah, I'm definitely going to enjoy this show. Real belly laughs, real fucking great lines, and the guy's just an asshole. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get into it. But first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for listening to this. And obviously, anyone who has gone over to the Patreon, thank you for that. And it's a real pleasure doing this. It really is. I really do enjoy it. And when I get to see new shows like this, so old shows but new shows to me, it's fun. And it's a real joy to find something new that I can actually enjoy just as much as the TV shows that I've already shared with you. But anyway, let's just get into it. So, this is Loudermilk, Season 1, Episodes 1 to 3. Episode 1, A Girl in Trouble is a Temporary Thing. So, we start off the episode and we're introduced to Sam Loudermilk, played by Ron Livingston. He seems to be a bit dishevelled, but as he walks into a coffee shop, he opens the door for a lady and the lady walks through and all's good. She thanks him and then heads towards the counter. However, she walks around the store, whereas he walks direct to the counter. Usually there's a flow to the shop where you kind of know what's going on, so you know where people will be leaving and where people will be going into. The girl took the going into path, whereas Sam Loudermilk took the opposite. So if anyone was exiting, they'd just bump into him. But when he gets to the counter at the same time as the girl starts rattling off her order. However, he tells her, whoa, I was here first, and then proceeds to just order a black coffee. He then gets into it with this girl who had a list of drinks that she needed to order, whereas Sam was only ordering one drink, and essentially insults her and then ends up walking out with his black coffee. He also gets called an asshole by the barista, because when she asks what his name is, he doesn't give it, but he is being an asshole. We then find out Sam's job, and it would seem that Sam is a counsellor in one of these addiction programs. He runs meetings and he tries to help people out who have addictions, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. And it seems like he's not very good at it. He does seem to be very sharp, to the point, but a real dick about all of it. Whatever it is, it seems to have been wearing him down for so long that he's just not bothered anymore. Or at least, he doesn't seem bothered. Sam is spoken to by Father Michael. Obviously, these group meetings, they usually are in a church or a town hall or something like that. And so, Father Michael speaks to Sam and asks him for a favour. It would seem that one of the church's female patrons has actually had a bit of a situation. Her daughter is a junkie, and she is living with her boyfriend on the other side of town. She's also a stripper and God knows what else. But her mother just wants her back. She wants to try and help her daughter out, and she thinks that maybe having someone like Sam go and talk to her will bring her around, and then she can come to these group sessions and she can actually start fixing herself. Sam tells her he's happy to help and heads over to the house, but when he gets there, the girl who's there, Claire Wilkes, played by Anya Savcic, seems to be a typical, I want to say teenager, but I think she's a bit older than that. And she's a bit bratty, but she seems to be also really struggling. She's obviously a junkie, and Sam tells her that he's trying to help and that her mother has basically sent him. She tries to close the door on him, but he puts his foot in the way and comes in. As he does, he meets her boyfriend and basically just insults their house, saying it's a shithole and saying lines like, "You're meant to tell people if they're going to be getting filmed because this is obviously an episode of Hoarders," and shit like that. He's a real sharp-tongued piece of shit, and I'm here for it. I think it's fucking brilliant. He continues to insult them, and then essentially he leaves, basically saying that it smells like there's been 2 trash cans fucking in there, and heads out. But after insulting her, he's left her his card and knows that she probably won't call, but he's done his bit. He heads back to his apartment, and while he's heading upstairs, there's an old guy in the way. And this old man, he's just trying to get up the stairs as quickly as possible. Obviously, we all age. We all end up in that situation where you get stuck behind an old person. You're like, I just want to get past. And he's trying that. And this old guy obviously just won't let him past. He won't stop on the landing or anything and let the guy pass. But eventually, Sam tries to get round him on a landing and just manages to nudge him a bit. But obviously, it's enough to piss this old man off. Sam gets upstairs and he finds out that he's got a new neighbour. And instantly, he's interested in her. She introduces herself as Alison, played by Loudermilk. And he's quite interested up until this old bloke turns up and essentially tells her exactly what he's done. And now Alison thinks he's a piece of shit. He goes into his flat and he speaks to his flatmate, but also, because he's a recovering alcoholic, this is his sponsor, Ben, played by Will Sasso, who is the guy I said was underrated. I think Will Sasso's great. And Sam tells Ben exactly what's gone on, about the girl, about the day that he's had, everything. And Ben basically tells him, look, this is the first girl that you've shown interest in a long time. Let's go do something to make it up to her. Sam seems to know a lot about music, and he heard that she was actually trying to learn guitar previously. So he goes out and he buys a record for her and a record player. Well, I say he does. Ben ends up fitting the bill because Sam doesn't have a lot of money. But when he tries to present it to Alison as a sort of peace offering, Claire's mum comes back in. She finds out where Sam lives and she comes to see him, and she tells him basically that he's a piece of shit. He has insulted her daughter, and I believe she says something along the lines of, "You propositioned her." And he's like, "No, I told her I wouldn't fuck her because she smelled like garbage." And while he's trying to impress Alison, probably not the best thing to tell her mother that he wasn't trying to fuck her daughter, but actually he was just insulting her. He seems like such a piece of shit so far, but honestly, he's so funny in this role. And so once again, Alison is like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. She takes the record and the record player, but she doesn't want anything to do with him. That night he heads out and he tries to find this Claire again, and he finds her at a strip club. He goes and speaks to her, but her boyfriend's there as well. Sam takes her outside and manages to get her to open up a little bit and talk about why she feels so shitty. But only after Sam reveals something about himself. And that is that he is a recovering alcoholic, and years ago he was with his partner, and they were out, they'd been drinking, they got in the car, and he wrapped it around a tree. He was fine, but she died. And this is the tragic backstory to Sam, and it just makes you realise why he is the way that he is. He's been spurned by the world, and he's hurting still, and punishes others, even though he shouldn't do that. Claire then opens up to him and tells him that she misses her dad. Her dad has died and she doesn't know what to do. She just wants to see him. Eventually, the boyfriend comes back out, and when Sam tries to deal with the situation. He ends up getting the shit kicked out of him because obviously the boyfriend has brought friends and this girl ends up dragging him home. She's called for Ben and Ben has come pick them both up and they drag him back home. Alison then sees how kind actually Sam is. He's not just a piece of shit, even though he's grumpy and a bit of an arsehole. He's kind of a nice guy. He's just misunderstood. And so she helps try and get him back on his feet because obviously he's pretty beat up. The reason that Sam has done all of this is to try and get his group back into the church because Claire's mother has complained to Father Michael and told him basically that Sam's a piece of shit and that he insulted her daughter and that he doesn't deserve the common area in the church to actually run his meetings. And so those meetings have been kicked out. And when Sam finds a replacement for where they actually need to be, they end up in this coffee shop. And honestly, it's a fucking phenomenal scene. It zooms in on this guy and he's basically telling this story of how he got into the situation he was into. I think he's into drugs. And he was just like, I went down a really black hole and, you know, I started doing things that I wasn't proud of. And the next thing, you know, I've got one dick in my mouth. And then after that, you know, it goes on to multiple and you just end up sucking so much dick and, you know, and then you just end up in this really bad place. And as this shot zooms out, you realise that he's actually in a coffee shop surrounded by children. And it's one of the best reveals I've ever seen. It really made me laugh. And so Sam knows that that's why he has to get this room back. And eventually he does, because he manages to help Claire out. And the next day, when he actually starts to run his session, Claire turns up. She tries to give him his jacket back that he gave her the night before, but she tells him that she threw up on it. And he says just keep it. But it does seem like she felt seen for the first time in a long time, and she needed that. And so this could be the start of her coming to these sessions and actually dealing with the demons that have plagued her for however long it's been. Episode 2, Shark Week. Now, look, I don't know what the opening bit was about, other than just showing how much of a prick fucking Sam Loudermilk is. So, essentially him and Ben are out driving, and they stop off and ask directions to this place, and this guy basically just says, oh, it's 12 mile as the crow flies, and Sam essentially just tears him a new one, for no reason. It's a perfectly legitimate saying, yeah, okay, it wasn't the best way to put it in that particular context, but just fucking leave him alone. Honestly, he's such a prick to this guy, and essentially just tells him like, oh well, you know, what if I'm not a crow? What if I'm actually a monkey? You know, how far is it if I'm a monkey? Can I get there quicker? Or I'm like, just fucking leave the guy alone. What a prick he is. But I don't even know why it's there. It's just, like I say, I think it's just to show how much of a dick he is. However, when they're both at home, Sam and Ben, they get a knock at the door from Alison, and she has brought a book back that Ben has lent her. And this book is written by Sam. It seems that Sam and Alison, even though they had a rocky start, do have a little bit of a connection, and they flirt. And Ben is trying his hardest to actually get Sam to have a date with someone, and thinks Alison is a good candidate for this. However, during the conversation, there is another knock at the door, and it's actually Claire. She tells Sam that her boyfriend's kicked her out and that they've split up and that she's lost her job and she has nowhere to stay. She's tried to go to her mum's and her mum won't let her in until she's clean and she's in a state. She's got bags of clothes with her and she needs somewhere to stay. Alison makes her excuses and leaves, and Claire asks Sam would she be able to stay here for a couple of days. After a bit of back and forth between the two of them, Ben comes out and says, look, we need to have a chat. They head into the living room and Sam says, look, I don't think this is a good idea, but Ben says, look, this could get you some brownie points with Alison, so maybe you do this and see how it goes. And that's all it needs to convince Sam to actually do this. But there are caveats to it, and they lay out the rules to Claire. They tell her that she can stay for a couple of days, but if she doesn't stay sober in the next 72 hours, she's out on her arse. She says 12 hours, and then they do a whole back and forth bargaining thing, and it ends up being that they pick 36 hours. However, just before she actually takes the challenge, she necks a small bottle, one of those miniatures, and then tells them to set the timer. So it seems that for the next few days at least, or day and a half, they're going to have Claire in the house. She is going to be staying on the sofa, but that means that she can actually go to the meetings that Sam runs. He takes her to this first one, and instantly she ends up pissing people off. Sam tells her that they're all a good crowd, but she ends up sat in a seat where someone would regularly sit. And the group warn her, look, don't sit there, you're going to get told off. And she doesn't. She doesn't listen, and when this guy comes in, and he was a big guy, she basically tells him to fuck off and go sit somewhere else, and he moves her physically. He's a fucking mountain of a man. And when I say he moves her physically, he does it gently, but he makes a point of, you need to move. So while he's there, he basically goes and speaks to Father Michael, and he thinks that it'll be good for both of them. Both Sam and Claire could benefit from this. But Claire really needs all the help she can get right now. As for Ben, we learned in the last episode that he's an alcoholic, but he's recovering. But actually in the last episode he ended up with what looked to be a martini in his hand. And so we can only assume that he isn't on the wagon anymore. And it's pretty much confirmed in this episode. He's in the house on his own while Sam and Claire are out at this meeting, and he heads into the bathroom, and he has a huge bag of chips and what looks to be either vodka or gin in a huge bottle. He goes into the bathroom when the door actually opens, and it turns out that it's actually Claire who's come back. It seems that she wants to use the toilet, and she heads for the bathroom. Ben makes his excuses and then hides the bottle within the cistern of the toilet and comes out. And later on, when Sam comes back, he finds out Claire is there, and he makes a comment about maybe she broke the toilet because she'd been back at the house for so long and had been reading his book on the toilet. However, when she goes out and he goes into the toilet, he finds that the toilet is actually broke, and that's when he finds this bottle of booze. He speaks to Ben about it, and Ben is just like, yeah, we should totally punish her. At first, Ben thinks that he's caught, but then realises that Sam is going after Claire, and just goes along with it. And then Sam tips this bottle away. He and Ben come up with a plan to actually do some sort of vision quest with Claire, because they think it'll teach her a lesson, but also it will distract her mind from thinking about booze. When Claire comes back and the next morning, they end up heading out to this remote spot in the middle of the woods. And you can see what's going to happen straight away. Sam basically tells her to close her eyes, and then they leave. Sam and Ben get in the car and drive away, leaving her on her own in the middle of fuck knows where. Eventually Claire manages to find someone and actually to get a lift back into the city. However, when she turns up, she starts throwing shit and yelling and screaming at these two guys, because, I mean, it was a dick move in all fairness, but when you realise what happened, it may have been the smartest move that they've made. Because while she's yelling and screaming at them, Sam tells her what time it is. He tells her it's 4 a.m, and then asks her how long she's been sober for. And she realises that this is the first time that she's been sober in a long time. She's been sober over the 36 hours now, and it's crazy how well it worked. It's a stupid thing to do, leaving people out in the fucking middle of nowhere, but it seems to have worked. And it means now that in another 12 hours, it's only 2 days. And in another 5 days, that's a whole week. And that's how you've got to look at it. You've just got to keep going and keep going and keep going. It's baby steps the whole way. But she's just made an amazing start to this. The next morning, Claire is asleep on the couch, and Ben speaks to Sam and says, when are you actually going to tell her that the couch that she's sleeping on is a pull-out couch? And he tells Ben, I'm not going to tell her anything because, well, that would mean we'd have to move the table. He's such a piece of shit. He really is just an arsehole. But I'm into it. I really am. I think he's so funny. But anyway, he essentially tells Ben that he's not going to tell her. And then he heads next door because he's actually signed a copy of his book because Alison wanted it. However, when he gets to Alison's apartment, a man answers the door. And it was inevitable. It's always going to be someone else that he wouldn't want to see answer the door. Just when Sam is making himself vulnerable in this situation. And it turns out that Alison has a boyfriend. And the reason that we haven't seen him so far is because he's actually a doctor and he works really hard and odd shift. So obviously this is going to be the hurdle that he has to get over when it comes to if he's going to have anything with Alison. But it's interesting. It's an interesting show and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm glad the person who actually recommended it, because they're going to listen to this and they're going to know how happy I am about this show. Episode 3, You're Only As Sick As Your Secrets. Okay, so it turns out that he is just a prick. Obviously, in the first episode, he picked on the girl in the coffee shop, then he picked on the guy at the side of the road. This time, he's just walking down the street and he starts picking on this guy. In fact, there's two guys, and he just basically starts having a go at them, asking them if there's like a lumberjack competition in town and shit like that, because they're both bearded and wearing flannel shirts. And he keeps asking them if they're Civil War reenactors. So it just seems that this is going to be a bit that is going to A, make me laugh, and B, just be a great feature for the whole series. Because, look, he's a dick. He's a real dick. But is he funny with it? Yeah. Ron Livingston's doing really well in this role. I like him as this. I do think that I'm going to get on with this series really well. It's almost as if people who listen to this know what I like. However, then we go back into one of the AA meetings, and this time Claire is attended. But while they're there, they actually start talking to a guy called Muggsy, who is one of the people in the group. And it turns out that one of Muggsy's biggest regrets is the fact that he hasn't talked to his daughter in such a long time. And it seems like they have fallen out for around about 8 years. And the reason for this is because of Hannah Montana. Yes, Miley Cyrus. And he doesn't see the error of his ways. They're talking to him about why this caused such a rift, and he says, well, it was meant to be my weekend being with her, and she had this concert to go to, this Hannah Montana concert, and she was more interested in doing that than hanging out with me. And at the time, his daughter was 9, so of course she's going to want to go to a Hannah Montana concert than fucking hanging out with her old dad. But he thinks that he's in the right because he fell out with her. But of course, Claire actually speaks up and tells this guy that he needs to go and speak to his daughter. He needs to nut up or shut up, and he can sit there bitching on as much as he wants, but his daughter needs to see him. His daughter needs him. And so everyone in the group agrees that it would be good if he actually started to reach out. However, Sam wants to help as much as he possibly can, and he starts to research her. Her name's Latte, so it's going to be a pretty easy fucking find. Him and Ben sit down together and Ben helps him out because apparently Sam isn't good with a computer. And eventually they find this girl. She's 17 and she is very active in the community. It seems that she does work at homeless shelters and is really just trying to help the community that she lives in. It seems like whoever actually raised her right. However, while they're looking for her, Alison comes over, and while Sam is out of the room, Ben says something incredibly inappropriate. Alison says that she's brought them some meatballs because she's going to be going out of town and they need to be eaten. And so Ben invites her in. He talks to her about what they're actually doing, and the way he says it is just incredibly wrong. He basically tells her that they are looking for women on the internet for Sam, giving no other context. And so Alison at first is a bit like, oh, well, she seems a little bit put out by it, but hey, whatever. She's got a husband or boyfriend, so, who's she to say who he's dating? And then Ben shows her the picture, and she goes, oh, she looks a little bit young. And she is, obviously she's 17. So as soon as he tells Alison that, Alison's a bit like, oh, I don't know if I like Sam anymore. That's weird that he's trying to pick up 17-year-old girls on the internet. But Ben justifies it by saying, yeah, but she's going to be 18 next week. And he doesn't get what he's saying. And Alison just makes her excuses and leaves before Sam can rectify the situation. Sam then heads over to do another meeting. And this is the meeting where he actually speaks to Muggsy about what's been going on with his daughter and tells him that he's found her. But just before this, we get Claire's mom. And she sat in with Father Michael. And she just wants an update on what's been going on. And so when Mrs. Wilkes is there, she asks if there's been any progress. And he says, look, I can say that there has been, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And Mrs. Wilkes says, well, the other day she called me a bitch. And then when Father Michael basically says, look, don't take that to heart, she says, no, that's great, because usually she says the F word or the C word, and, once or twice she's used the N word. And she says, well, she's getting better. And Loudermilk says, yeah, alphabetically. The way the man fucking pulls lines out of his ass are brilliant. And then they go on to talk about something happening at school. And that's the reason that Claire dropped out. Something happened, but we don't know what. And Loudermilk basically says, well, she lost her father. So, it was probably that, but her mother thinks it's something deeper. So Loudermilk now needs to come up with a plan of what to do to get this out of Claire and why she's been the way that she's been. They then have the session and they end up taking Muggsy to go and see his daughter. Once he gets there, we actually find out that there's more to the story with Muggsy. It turns out that he didn't just leave a daughter behind, he left 7 children and 2 on the way. And it's at this point that Claire realises that even though she's been trying to help this guy, there's no helping him. He is a piece of shit. Like, she lost her father and feels aggrieved by all of this because it's people like that who end up staying and being alive. I mean, look at certain people in the government in America right now who are father to several hundred children probably, and just had another one recently and doesn't look after any of them. But Claire's pissed off because her dad isn't there anymore and she misses him and he was the only one. And then you've got Muggsy's daughter, Latte, who's basically caring for people in the community, whereas Claire was handed a bunch of opportunities and she never took any of them, and she just ended up being a druggie, and now she's sleeping on Loudermilk's couch. However, when she says it, she says, I'm sleeping on a loser's couch, and I knew the line was coming, and it fucking made me laugh anyway, because he goes, Ben's trying his hardest. I knew it was coming, and it was just a fucking perfectly timed line. It's exactly what I would have said. You know me, if I can adapt to a character, or if I can see myself doing that role, it's perfect. However, he tries to talk to her a bit more, and then out of nowhere, a guy called Charlie turns up, and it seems that Charlie's got Down syndrome. He acts all innocent around Claire, and just a moment earlier, a frisbee had landed at her feet, and so she picks it up and throws it back to Charlie. However, it seems like Charlie wants to play, and so Loudermilk encourages her and says, look, go play with him. You don't have any friends. He doesn't have any friends. Go play with him. Go enjoy yourself. Do something out of the ordinary. And so she does. She heads off, and she seems like she has a good, fun time with him. Later on that night, however, Loudermilk is speaking to Claire, and he asks her about what happened with school and why she quit, and that he feels that not only did she lose her father, but it feels like she lost probably someone else. He asks, was it a friend? And she kind of bats it away as if, no, it wasn't for me. He then asks if it was a teacher, and she tells him a story of how she started dating this teacher, how things escalated quickly and fizzled out just as quickly. But Claire tells her that it was only for her that things fizzled out quickly. For the other woman, it didn't. And this is something that shocks Loudermilk because it's not the kind of thing that you'd really associate. And I know it's happened a lot more recently where female teachers are getting with young boys or young girls, but it's not something you directly go to. And that is, it shocked me. As I'm watching it, I'm mouth aghast, like, what the fuck? Didn't see that one coming at all. So we find out that Claire had her heart broken not long after her father died. And, of course, in that situation where a girl has lost her father, you'd expect them to go for a father figure. And she didn't. She ended up going for a lesbian lover. But it's a strange situation. We then, however, find out something very interesting. There is a knock at the door, and it seems that Charlie was actually hired by Loudermilk. And he's come to collect payment from Loudermilk while Claire is in the flat. They get into it on the doorstep, and then Claire comes out and finds them there and realises that she's been tricked again. Last time it was being taken out into the woods, and this time she's been tricked. She's not happy and she leaves, calling him a dickhead, basically. And we're not sure where that dynamic's going to go, but hopefully she'll learn not to let him trick her, because she seems a lot smarter than she acts. One thing we have noticed while watching the show, though, is the fact that Ben has this weird tick. Whenever he answers the phone, he giggles like he's doing something, or someone said a funny joke, or something's happened. So he always sounds like he's actually enjoying the thing that this person has just taken him away from, whoever's on the phone. And it's something that Loudermilk mentions just before the episode ends. And the next time his phone rings, Ben realises that he does have a problem and he's not sure what this ticket is all about. Okay, so admittedly this show is very, very funny. And Ron Livingston is killing it as this smug prick that just doesn't give a shit about anyone and will say anything to anyone. He's got that sort of smug prick aesthetic, I suppose. You know, when he was in A Million Little Things, he was always a bit sort of up himself, and Ron Livingston kind of pulls that character off quite well in pretty much anything that he does. He always seems to be a little bit higher above everybody else, but he's also just a regular guy. And yeah, the dynamic between him and Claire already is brilliant. I think he's very, very funny, very, very dry, but also just says what he wants and calls people on their bullshit. You know, this is the kind of thing that free speech is for, not being racist and not being homophobic or whatever it is. This is it. Calling people on their bullshit, talking to people, calling people out, and making sure that they have answers for questions that you are asking. Simple as that. But obviously the words free speech these days mean something totally different. Generally end up meaning lies. But this is such a funny show. Will Sasso's great. He's just got this cheeky face at all times that really endeared me to him. I think he's fucking brilliant in the things that I've seen him in. He always brings a smile to my face. He always makes me laugh. And then, you know, we haven't seen much of Alison, but what we have seen is that she does seem to have a little bit of a thing for Sam, but obviously everything that goes on around him just is chaos. So it's not going to be easy for her to get anywhere near him. And obviously, you know, she's got a boyfriend, so we're unsure if that is a real thing for them. But it does seem like she likes being around Sam. And Claire is just brilliant. She's a breath of fresh air. She is sassy as all hell, but she just gets it. And Anya is just really good at playing that role. She's got a lot of fire in her, and you can see that the character wants to be better than what she was. She's obviously gone down a dark path, and now she needs that salvation, and Loudermilk is that salvation for her. He is someone that will be able to help her, but she ultimately needs to help herself because she's the only one who can. Obviously, you know, Loudermilk will be there along the way, but he'll do it with such an arsehole characteristic that sometimes you've got to wonder if it's going to be helping or hindering, but I know it's going to make me fucking laugh. So that's all I care about. But look, I'm done for today. This has been a fucking joy. It really has. I'm so glad I didn't watch this show before I got into it. I think it's great. And yeah, I'm loving it. However, I'm done for today. So come follow me on the socials, you know, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your podcasts from, Spotify. Like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever. I need all that. It's all good. Go buy the books by the authors that I've given out before. They'll be very grateful for any sales that come from this, and I'm happy to help them out any way that I can. So, you know, go over to my Linktree and you'll be able to find that. But until next time, I'm done for now. So I thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.
And that is it for now, amigos. And yes, I am as angry as you are at me for that sentence, but I hope you enjoyed the show and had some fun along the way. It means a lot that you are listening and supporting me. This is an independent podcast after all, and doesn't get a lot of backing. So it's great to know that you're out there, you're listening, and if you want to come talk to me on any of the platforms I'm on, just come say hi. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and I'm even a little bit on TikTok. I don't post that much, but I'm on there. And you can also drop comments in the comment sections on any of the platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts from. But as always, thank you for your time, and I will speak to you soon.